So, if you guys weren't watching football around the Thanksgiving day, don't know what's wrong with you. Gotta get that checked out. Fair enough if you guys don't watch football, but we had the Chicago Bears sound off their abysmal 6-game losing streak to the Detroit Lions, but it was a very competitive showing. But it ended off terribly for Matt Eberflus after indecisive play calling, drilling like 30 seconds on the game clock when they have one remaining timeout to move out the field after Caleb Williams took a massive sack, and the prayer went undecidedly out of Romadunze's hands, just 5 yards off of his hands, and it ended incomplete. Closing out, Chicago Bears with another loss, and that puts them now 4-8, with now Matt Eberflus losing his 3-year tenure with the Chicago Bears. Still missing the playoffs with another first-round quarterback that's possibly gonna have another terrible season. And that sucks to say when your all-time best quarterback is Jay Cutler when it came to passing leaders. And that gotta suck. Because now Matt Eberflus come out of a 7-10 season after they were expected to win less than 3 games after his first year with Justin Fields as head coach, as their starting quarterback. After possibly their last successful few seasons when they were having sub 500 8-8 seasons, providing mediocrity until Mitchell Trubisky left for Pittsburgh to get a starting position after his tenure went awry after a wild card exit. But I think that was against the Philadelphia Eagles. And knowing that, it's back to square one for the Chicago Bears. And now they're going to be pushing Thomas Brown into the helm as a head coach. After being the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears for 2 seasons? Never was much of except like an assistant head coach over for the LA Rams since 2020, as he was developing as a running back coach, and was an offensive coordinator around the Miami Hurricanes. And knowing the Chicago Bears' notable running depth, people are saying that this would be more of a step in the right direction, knowing Chicago's offensive struggles. On Monday, wide receiver team leader DJ Moore appeared on 670 and 670 Scores with Mully and Hughes show and shared his thoughts on Matt Eberflus's firing, which he believes was long overdue. As the season was going, you just kind of figured that was going to happen. Moore said Monday. Thursday, at the end of the game, was the last straw. I feel like they did it. Now we got Thomas Brown as the interim head coach, and we're going to go out there and play for him. Since Eberflus' firing on Friday, there has been multiple reports that led by cornerback and team leader Jalen Johnson lashing out on Eberflus' post-game locker room at the point no way to move forward with Matt Eberflus. So it seems like everybody's just going down over on Eberflus, knowing over Matt Eberflus' reputation, I think, to lose a locker room. And exiting it out after a 4-8 record, knowing his mediocrity that he had over the first 5 seasons as a coordinator for Indianapolis, it really takes that, it takes a lot of, patience for a developing team that probably had aspirations over a wild card berth if they picked up this victory against Detroit. If, play calling came awry. And knowing, like, players were kind of not tolerating it. I don't know what's the other end of the stick here, because I do want to push, like, devil's advocate that Eberflus was possibly not in the right direction to be head coach, knowing, like, he has to develop a young quarterback. And think play calling to Hail Mary it in and try to clutch over a win. And here's one person putting up, like, there's, like, a real reason over in the Windy City.com. Some report cycle from Chicago after Chicago Bears send head coach Matt Eberflus packing. I wrote a deep dive on all the wrong Eberflus everything wrong with the Eberflus tenure. The pattern that blown leads, baffling late game clock management, questionable coordinating, and coaching hires, and more. I actually barely touched one subject, and he's losing the locker room. That's been the biggest report, and even like Bleacher Report over. If you guys watch Gridiron Heights, the biggest question of him is possibly his stature on locker room management, that he possibly was not really having a good relation with the Chicago Bears team to begin with. One thing I did mention, however, was the lack of taking accountability for the decisions that didn't work out, even if they were defensible decisions that backfired. Let's start back on the Hail Mary failure against the Washington Commanders. Oh yeah, when the player's arm was up, trying to wave off that it was going to push over as incomplete, but it got caught in the last minute. This happened this season too. They chose to give the Commanders an easy completion on the previous play, figuring that the defending in the end zone was all that mattered. Logic here that they can argue either way, but if you agree with Eberflus, you'd have pointed out that the Hail Mary pass would be difficult to complete, and the Bears would be able to avoid a defensive breakdown, but it led to a long touchdown. And if you disagree, you'd argue more aggressive defense approach to Chicago's might prevent the Commanders to be getting close enough to the attempt of the Hail Mary. Either way, Eberflus had at least one timeout available. It should have used that for a defense that was ready for the Hail Mary. Yeah, lackadaisical approaches like that kind of gave the game away in a lot of games for the Chicago Bears around this season. I think they even fell apart over to that game against the Arizona Cardinals that they had this year. And it sucks too, because Bears were somewhat competitive over as a team. They've allowed of a bare minimum of under 25 points of offense around this season. Their highest was Indianapolis Colts, where they lost 21-26. They only allowed 10 points against the Panthers, and that was when they had a 3-game winning streak. Held 16 to the Jaguars, held only 17 to the Rams. But these are against like non-divisional opponents they've looked good in, and to be fair, they did have a tough schedule. At least 4 out of their 5, and then they get the San Francisco 49ers that they probably had a chance of winning, knowing how injury-riddled this is. But majority of the after their bye are contending teams. And then out of their 3-game road trip, they play the Lions again at home. So I would just say that it was just a strength of schedule that I feel like would undermine that Eberflus possibly was a bit hasty of a firing. And you know how much a constructing team that's trying to develop over a contending, ambition will falter to this. The same thing happened to Robert Saleh from the New York Jets, where they were very held accountably for their defense. oversaw his defensive mindset, but when it came to their offense underperforming and closing out on tough games, they choked against an Indianapolis Colts, and then they choked against the Seattle Seahawks, and they're allowing more points on offense. And this is when after that bye of that 3-game winning streak, they only won 4 of their first 5, only losing to the Texans and Colts. They're kind of split in their AFC South opponents they had over their schedule. And knowing this, like, I feel like it's a bit hastily of a firing when it comes to you in a tenure. You give it another first-round rookie to look after. So people would push this over to Eberflus with his lackadaisical coaching. That would be a reason. And you don't always want to develop that result. And who's the first person to be pushed over to the line to the lack of the team success? It's going to be the coach. And then after the coach is going to be the quarterback. And then over that is going to be the team as a whole. And then we're going to push over to the front office. And it's going to be the same song and dance. The only thing is the Chicago Bears don't know what they want to be. Over as a franchise and as a football team. Because this is another head coach that you ran out the muck like you did Matt Nagy. And this is after like a reasonable tenure where he actually given you guys some seam of like postseason relevance. When you guys actually had like a good sizable defense unit, reasonable offensive players. When Jordan Howard was your leading rusher, you had Tariq Cohen after his season with the Atlanta Falcons. When you had Andre Miller, Trubisky was showing out to be a consistent passer on the team. I think y'all had Alshon Jeffrey for like at least a season after this. Allen Robinson was very good at his job. But it was mainly a defensive unit. Eddie Jackson, you had Khalil Mack, Leonard Floyd, veteran Hakeem Nicks, and Cody Whitehair. Like notable defensive flash out pass rush that can just punish you over the backfield whenever you overthrow. And now the Bears are just stuck back in the wrong direction. They're probably going to coast around knowing that they're going to suck. And then we're going to develop over if Caleb Williams is the right guy over in the job when they know that they got nobody to develop him. And now you're seeing that when you put Justin Fields to a real football team with a real coach, with a real structure that don't mind having a veteran start over him so he can learn. And now you don't see anybody blaming Justin Fields for whenever the Pittsburgh Steelers pick up a loss. And guess what? They have a better record than the Baltimore Ravens. That's in it around itself. When it's more of a team, when it comes over less of a coaching or quarterback problem, when it happens as a franchise problem as a whole. Because nobody wants to try to stress over what Chicago has done, knowing they've lost their legitimacy as a real NFL franchise for over, you could say 25 years or 30 years. But that's just my opinion. Tell me how you guys feel down below. You feel like Eberflus deserved the firing he got? I know I'm going to hear it from some notable Chicago Bears fans that I know of, that he deserves to get possibly hung in a noose or some wild shit like that. That's it for me here on the DC Show. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys enjoyed your Thanksgiving. That's it for me. I'm going to take my Tylenol.